Welcome to Just the Fit. Sometimes on Mythic Muscle, I'll use specific verbiage or talk about modalities that not everyone knows. And maybe you do know of them, but you'd like to understand them just a bit more intimately. Here's to you. On Just the Fit, I'll be focusing on the fitness part of Fitness and Folklore. These episodes are a little bit more pragmatic in nature, and if I do my job well, you'll come away with a greater understanding. If you're looking for some myth, this totally isn't for you, but Just the Myth, the sibling to this series, definitely is. Of course, if you need a bit of both, Mythic Muscle's still there waiting for you. And hey, if you're not interested in fitness at all and you're still listening to support me, you've got a very, very special place in my heart. Thank you. If you want to support me further, you can find me on nearly every social media platform. Patreon, my preferred platform, TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, and Instagram by searching for Mythic Muscle Podcast and looking for the helmet crossed with the barbell and the microphone. Without further ado, here's Just the Fit Episode 4, Intensity. If you're not new to the channel, you've absolutely heard me talk about intensity, and I think it'd be rather ignorant of me to assume that intensity is a well-understood or self-explanatory concept. When I was new, I certainly had no grasp on intensity in any quantifiable measure, other than, dang, this is hard and it makes my muscles hurt, so it must be working. And while you can totally get away with that last statement being where your understanding of intensity starts and ends, I'll suggest an alternative. Approach intensity with a more structured understanding. If you're analytically minded, it might help you to perceive the gym like a series of inputs and outputs. For example, input, you go to the gym and train with a moderate amount of effort, come home, eat moderately, and engage in moderate sleep hygiene. Output, you see a moderate amount of gains. Another example. Input, you go to the gym, train really hard, feed yourself more than adequately, and rest properly. Output, you see the absolute maximum level of gains you could possibly acquire. A third example. Input, you go to the gym, train balls to the wall crazy hard, eat in a huge caloric surplus, and sleep for 12 hours. Output, you see an increase in muscular gains, but severe detriments in all other aspects of life. That last example is not a judgment. If you're a serious lifter or you've been in it for a while, you've probably attempted some stupid shit like that. I can guarantee you I have. So there are variables that go into our inputs and outputs. One of those variables is intensity. That's going to be how hard you train. The rest we'll leave for later episodes. If you were to take any of those examples and turn the dial up or down on intensity, you would inherently change the output, meaning you'll greatly affect your gains. Reflect for a second. How many people have you seen go to the gym for years on end and not make an ounce of progress? Chances are it's at least one person, and I feel for that person. It really sucks to be doing all the right things but not getting anything back. The most common reasoning for this is an imbalance in the aforementioned variables, and likely it's training intensity. See, the weird thing about intensity is even if the rest of your variables kinda blow, you can make up for it just by cranking the intensity dial to 11. I wouldn't recommend it, but we'll get into that later. Let me give you a legitimate definition of intensity so that we're all operating within the same sphere. Training intensity is the summation of three variables: your heart rate, your perceived exertion, and your ability to recover. Now, if you're quick, you definitely recognize that one of those three things is not something you can immediately know while training in the gym, but that the other two absolutely become apparent. If you do a bit of research on intensity, you'll likely see things like the talk test being a measure of whether or not you're training hard. I don't recommend this as a measure because I can hold full conversations while I train, and I train much more intensely than most people. It's a tad too subjective while appearing objective. Pretty solid evidence of it being kinda lame is that David Goggins routinely uploads videos of him running harder than the vast majority of people, and he's delivering full-throated monologues about carrying boats and logs. Anyway, we now have an operating definition of training intensity. Let's break down those three variables. Starting with variable 1, heart rate. Your heart rate is a huge indication of training intensity. It's really simple. If you think about when your heart rate is at its highest, you are likely experiencing some sort of huge endogenous stimulus that pushed your body into fight or flight mode. Tapping into the endocrine system in this way releases endorphins, which do a whole mess of really great things. They act as natural mood stabilizers, they help with metabolic activity, and they lower cortisol levels. All good things. Chances are, if you're experiencing a flood of endorphins, you're exercising with a pretty decent amount of intensity. If you're hitting between 130 and 160 BPM during exercise, those endorphins are flowing. So heart rate, mega simple. The higher it is, the more intense the exercise, the more neurologically stimulating, which in turn results in more gains. As I've alluded to in earlier episodes, gains are primarily driven by a neurological response to adapt. The forum or vehicle for this adaptation response is muscular fatigue. Variable number 1 is where things are most scientific. It's difficult to argue with objective numbers leading to explicit changes within the nervous system. But variable 2 is the fun, less sciencey one. We've talked about perceived exertion ad nauseum in the RPE and RIR episode. Refer to that one so I'm not wasting your time repeating everything in that episode here. What I will do though is expand upon what I've already laid. Again, we use RPE and RIR as scales to quantifiably measure the feeling of difficulty we get while training. This is 2/3 of the intensity formula. But what exactly is that feeling? As I've stated before, it's the sensation of difficulty during the exercise, and that typically comes in a few different packages. If you're training with serious intensity, you'll actively feel your muscle contract. It'll burn due to the buildup of lactic acid within the muscle during exercise toward the end of the set. If you're training hard enough though, it might start as soon as you do the first rep and you just gotta mentally tank through it. And then lastly, you'll be actively weaker for the next set. From this understanding of feeling, which we can now really relabel as intensity, we get a bunch of checkboxes. You could literally run down the list while you're training. Do you feel the muscle contracting? Check, you're training intensely. Is it burning or do your muscles feel fuller? Check, you're training intensely. Was the next set physically more difficult than the first? Check, you're training intensely. As for that last point, if you're one of those people who goes to do a set of incline dumbbell press and you barely hit 8 reps and then on the second set you slam 12 like they weren't there, I feel you, I'm the same way. I got nothing for you, dog. Maybe warm up better? I don't know, I'm still attempting to figure that out myself. Either way, if you're checking all of those off, you're very likely accruing gains. Now we make it to variable number 3. When referring to intensity, most people wouldn't add this part in. And the reasoning for that is because it can really muddy the waters and expand the definition too broadly. I get that. I do, but your ability to recover directly impacts your ability to train with intensity. It's a 1-to-1 correlation, and because your intensity suffers without proper recovery, it's part of the formula. Here is a probably terrible analogy that I'm going to stumble into and then run away from. Imagine you're mowing a lawn. The first time you mow the lawn, you've got a ride-on lawnmower, it's gas-powered. You fill the tank up with gas and blitz through the lawn in 20 minutes, and as soon as you're done, it's run out of gas. No big deal, you got the lawn mowed, all is well. A week or so passes, and you realize, damn, gotta mow the lawn again. You hop on your ride-on lawnmower, go to start it, it sputters, coughs, and like Disney Pixar's Cars, it looks up at you and says, sorry buddy, ain't got the juice. So you slap on over to your old reliable motorless push lawnmower and start pushing that thing across the grass. Takes forever, it's inefficient, the ride-on lawnmower's laughing at you from the sidelines because you forgot to put gas back in it, and 3 hours later, you were exhausted and part of the lawn's already grown back. If you planned intelligently, you'd have gotten some gas for the ride-on and mowed the lawn in 20 minutes again. Effectively, efficiently, and the lawn wouldn't grow back nearly as quickly. Now, swap the ride-on with a properly recovered you, and swap the act of mowing the lawn with the act of training. Sure, you can cut the grass with a shitty push mower, but if you had just got the gas, you'd see better results. If you properly recover, you're operating a better machine, and it will input-output better results. 2/3 of your training intensity is modified by what you do in the gym, and 1/3 of it is impacted by what you do outside of the gym. But all 3 parts of the formula are present while you train. If we're attempting to maximize our efficiency in the gym, and therefore maximize our gains, we must view intensity in this 3-part figure. Recovery is definitely a topic for a later episode, but some pretty common guidelines are get your 8 hours of sleep, even if you think you're one of those people who can get by with 4, you're not, you cannot, and your body hates you for it. Eat well, within a monitored caloric range dependent on your training goals, and get at least 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day. Earlier, I suggested that if you're training with proper intensity, you can kind of forego a clean diet and proper sleep hygiene, and this is somewhat true. If you only pay attention to 2/3 of the formula, you will eke out gains. They won't be as great as they can be, but they'll show up. With those gains, though, you'll experience a whole bunch of negative side effects that absolutely do not outweigh the positives. Throwing recovery out the window, if you just crank the difficulty of the work, if you burn enough calories, you can eat whatever the hell you want. Calories in, calories out is a tried and true method of weight moderation. Issue arises, though, in that, while your body might not show it, your blood work certainly will. You'll have even greater difficulty sleeping because your muscles won't be repairing properly, you'll feel fatigue and brain fog all the time, and you're at higher risk of all types of ailments. If your diet and sleep aren't on point, the gym really won't help you much. I'd go as far as to say if your diet and sleep is really bad, you need to not be in the gym. That's just a small aside though. There's no honor in being in the gym for 6 hours a day, 7 days a week, missing out on everything life has to offer. Making the gym your life is really missing the mark in my opinion. All in all, training intensity is a huge factor in acquiring gains. If you remember the formula and the checklist, you'll definitely hit your marks. If your training is making you do the Arnold face or has you screaming like Tom Platz and Dorian Yates, I promise you, you're doing something right. With that, I have been your host, Benjamin Cloud. This has been Just the Fit on the Mythic Muscle Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day, a ridiculously intense lift, or if it's a rest day, go listen to more Mythic Muscle episodes. I heard that's a really cool thing that people do nowadays. Take care, folks. Please consider supporting me on Patreon. For only $3 a month, you get Discord access, and you buy me a protein bar. $5 a month gets you Discord access with special colors and emotes, blooper reels, a shout out from me, and transcripts of each episode. $10 a month gets you all of that noise, a vote in our monthly poll, a personalized 10-second clip of whatever you want me to say, and every dollar spent at that tier goes right back into the podcast so that I might bring you a better listening experience. Follow my socials. You can find me on pretty much every platform by searching for Mythic Muscle Podcast and looking for the helmet crossed with the barbell and the microphone. If you made it this far, you're my favorite type of human. I hope you have a wonderful day, a fantastic lift, or if it's a rest day, you get some quality relaxation time. Thank you.